परमं लोके जीवानां जीवनं स्मृतं पानीयस्य प्रदानेन तृप्तिर्भवति पाण्डव पानीयस्य गुणा दिव्या परलोके गुणावः।
Water, the essence of all life. It nourishes us, sustains us, and shapes the very fabric of our world, the foundation of all civilizations that have ever existed. Yet, in its quiet omnipotence, water often goes unnoticed until it becomes scarce. The delicate balance of our planet's water systems is at a tipping point, the cost of humanity's consumerist ways. Our best minds and technologies are frantically trying to make sense of the situation.
UN is going to hold a meeting on water.
For the consequences will be devastating. Can the same thought process that complicated things in the first place be depended upon for solutions? The arrogance of our industrialized modern society blinds us to the fact that our ancestors must have faced similar challenges for tens of thousands of years. Inspired by Bharat's ancient traditions of seeking the truth, we embark on a journey to explore the great traditions of water conservation practiced by our ancestors. For it is through this rediscovery of the past that one may find a path towards a sustainable future.
मैं तो भरू मारी सहला भरे रे मैं तो भरू मारी सहला भरे रे जल बादली रो पानी सैया गुण तो भरे जल बादली रो पानी सैया गुण तो भरे हाजिना दिया रे वीर जी खुदायो भीम तालाब जल बादली पानी सैया गुण तो भरे जल बादली पानी सैया गुण तो भरे ओ मैं तो भरू मारी सहला भरे रे मैं तो भरू मारी सहला भरे रे जल बादली पानी सैया गुण तो मरे जल बादली पानी सैया गुण तो मरे जल
The iconic monsoons of Bharat have been a blessing for most of the country, except for the northwest region, which has been less fortunate in receiving its bounty. Due to its scarce rainfall and meager river systems, the natives of this region developed sophisticated methods of water management that sustained them throughout the year. All of northwest India is dotted with ancient and medieval step wells, tanks, bunds, boweries, and countless other uniquely indigenous methods of water conservation. Such refinement doesn't evolve in a few generations. The roots of Bharat's sophistication in water management stretch far back in antiquity. The Harappan era site Dholavira, discovered in Gujarat's Rann of Kutch, is a vibrant remnant of those roots. To gain a deeper understanding of this legacy, I traveled to meet Professor Michael Denino, a renowned expert on Indus Valley sites and their water systems.
Harvesting water, storing water, and distributing water. These are the three issues that you have to deal with, differently in different regions, climatic zones. In Mohenjo-daro, again in brief, there was no problem of storage because the groundwater was enormously available. Here the engineering issue was how to make wells which would not collapse under the pressure of that underground water. If you look at Dholavira, which is one of the most impressive Harappan sites in India, the engineering techniques were extremely different because everything was about storage. There were these huge tanks. The largest tanks in Dholavira is 73 meters long, almost the length of a football field. One key, engineering key, which they initiated there and which continues in later historical India, is that these series of wells were interconnected with underground drains. There were stormwater drains which channel water to the reservoirs, and underground drains connecting all these reservoirs together would distribute this water equally. It was an integrated system. That's what we often lack today, this integrated thinking.
The wisdom of the ancient Indus Valley civilization did not erode with time. Rather, it found expression in even greater forms in the later historical periods. Just a few hours from Gandhinagar exists one such site, the Rani Ki Vav, an exquisite stepwell constructed by Rani Udaymati, wife of 11th century Chalukya king Bhima I. Today, Rani Ki Vav is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and stands testimony to the divine marriage of utility and beauty. I am accompanied by Professor T.V. Bharat, a respected name in the field of foundational engineering.
So, Professor Bharat, first thing I would like to know from you, I've seen these beautiful step wells all over Gujarat and Rajasthan and many other states. What was the purpose of making into such huge, beautiful architectural marvels?
This is a unique feature of ancient wisdom to build temples for water. I think it appears that the structure is built for accessing the groundwater and also for harvesting the rainwater. The interesting aspect is, first of all, the excavation itself. It is not possible to simply excavate to whatever the depth we want.
Absolutely.
Because the soil would exert a thrust or the lateral pressure. And we require retaining walls to support these lateral pressures. Retaining walls construction has to take place from the bottom to top.
Oh my God.
So
it's a great challenge then.
Great challenge. We need to know what is the groundwater level location, groundwater source location. One possibility is that they might have excavated all around. Then after that they might have placed these stones and then they would have started from there and backfilling the soil and they would have constructed the whole thing.
Nowhere in world history we find such passion and reverence for a natural resource that's usually taken for granted. The modern worldview dictates that the form of something should follow its function. But water conservation structures like Rani Ki Vav couldn't disagree more. It appears as if water conservation is much more than just a social utility of the Bharatiya Drishti. Else how can it inspire such architecture, craft, songs and festivals? To understand this profound marriage of Sanskriti and environmentalism, I meet Padma Shri Professor Kapil Tiwari, in Bhopal.
हर जातीय परंपरा की कोई एक मूलभूत जीवन दृष्टि होती है। उस जीवन दृष्टि का आग्रह लेके ही एक संस्कृति अपनी रचना करती है। वो दो रूपों में करती है, एक में अमूर्त, जब वो आस्था में चली जाती है, बाहर कुछ भी उसमें दृष्ट नहीं होता, हाँ? लेकिन जो दिखता है वो तत्वतः संस्कृति की भौतिक परंपरा है। और ये भौतिक परंपरा जो है कोई स्थिर चीज नहीं है, इसमें लगातार नवाचार होते रहते हैं, वो धीरे धीरे बदलती रहती है। उसकी शक्ति ही इसमें है कि वो निरंतर गति कर रही है। जल से हमारी प्रेरणा किस चीज की होती है? जिस जल में तुमने नहाया था नदी में, वो तो कब का बह चुका। एक ही नदी में तुम दूसरी बार स्नान नहीं कर सकते। ये निरंतरता और ये गति जीवन की, इसके रहस्य को भारती जानता, इसलिए वो जल के प्रति इतना कृतज्ञ था। उसने जीवन की रचना ही वहां की जहां जल था, और जल का एक देवता बनाया। वरुण है उसके देवता, नदियां मात्र रूपा हैं, उनमें दीपदान किए जाते हैं, उनके संकल्प होते हैं, उनके अनुष्ठान होते हैं, उनके मेले ठेले और पर्व त्योहार होते हैं। महान सभ्यताओं का उनके किनारे अभ्युदय होता है और एक दिन वे नष्ट होती हैं और पुनर्रचना होती है उनकी। इतनी समग्रता में जीवन को जो लोग जानते हैं, मैं आपको बताऊं, बिना पढ़े ज्ञान नहीं है। जीवन की पाठशाला में सीखा हुआ ज्ञान है वो कर पाते हैं इस सांस्कृतिक बोध की रचना, जिसको हम भारतीय बोध कहते हैं।
Bhopal is a part of larger region, historically known as Malwa. Plateaus have shaped Malwa's arid climate, which in turn has shaped its tribal population. Yet, amidst the harshness, there is a raw, untamed quality that speaks to the soul. Journeying towards Madu, I am joined by a leading architect from Indore, Udayan Natu. Udayan's work in this region has highlighted dozens of obscure aspects of water conservation practiced by the ancient Parmar dynasty in Malwa.
Parmaras were ruling this entire region of Malwa from 7th to 14th century. So nearly 700 years. We can say them as an master architects of controlling the water. It's such a wonder that having no river, but still having a capacity to hold such a big civilization. And they had expertise themselves in conserving the rainwaters to different levels. They had taken one lake, tried to find out the topography. Accordingly, they made the stop dams. The same overflow, the siphonic overflow going to another lake. Again, they are stopping there. Again, they are creating a lake. In this way, in entire this Mando, they had created 27 lakes. The capital of MP now, what we call it as in Bhopal, that is basically designed by Raja Bhoj. Yeah. On his name only that Bhopal is there. There also we will see the same technology has been used, which he has experimented here at Mandu. And because of that, this entire area become rich in water conservation and in prosperity to the society.
After witnessing the tangible aspects of water conservation of our Sanskriti, I head towards the enchanting blue city of Jodhpur to meet Professor Ramnath Jha. Professor Jha is a cherished luminary of the Vedas and can satisfy my curiosity regarding the intangible aspects of water conservation in Bharat.
आप देखें कि दुनिया का जो प्रथम कोश है, जो वैदिक कोश जिसको कहते हैं, उसको निघंटु कहते हैं, उसमें जल के 101 नाम बताए हैं। ऋग्वेद में एक हमें मंत्र मिलता है कि यो आपो दिव्या उतवा स्रवंती खनित्रिमा उतवाया स्वयंजाः समुद्रार्था या शुचयः पावकास्ता आपो देवीरिह मामवंतु। ये वस्तुतः जल के प्रकारों का वर्णन। दिव्य, दिव्याः, वृष्टि से प्राप्त जल को माना है। स्रवंती का मतलब है कि जो बह रहा है। खनित्रिमा से मतलब है कि जिसको खोद कर प्राप्त किया जाए। स्वयंजा, जो स्वतः ही पृथ्वी से जल फूटता है या पहाड़ों से झरने वगैरह जो निकलते हैं, वो एक जल है, वो समुद्र का जल है। तो इतने प्रकार के जलों की चर्चा एक मंत्र में उन्होंने कर दी है। ऐसे ही तैतरीय आरण्यक में हमें मिलता है। यजुर्वेद में जल के अनेक रूपों की आहुति देते हैं। अद्भ्य स्वाहा, वार्भ्य स्वाहा, उदकाय स्वाहा, तिष्ठन्तिभ्य स्वाहा, स्रवन्तिभ्य स्वाहा, चंदमानाभ्य स्वाहा, कूपाभ्य स्वाहा, शुद्ध्याभ्य स्वाहा, धार्याभ्य स्वाहा, अर्णवाय स्वाहा, समुद्राय स्वाहा, शरीराय स्वाहा। अनेक जगह ऋषियों ने सावधान करते हुए कहा है कि कोई भी व्यक्ति किसी प्रकार का जो विकार है वो नदियों में ना डाले। यदि विकार डालता है तो फिर उससे बड़ा पापी कोई नहीं है। लेकिन आज भी हम में से जो एंथ्रोपोसेंट्रिक वर्ल्ड व्यू लेकर चलते हैं, उनकी दृष्टि में इस सृष्टि की सारी चीज केवल उपभोग के लिए है।
Integrating water with dharma and art was a brilliant strategy for keeping local communities engaged and invested in its conservation. Knowledge of this nuance makes one see all of Rajasthan's lakes, bawris, jhalras, talabs and culture with a fresh sense of admiration. Standing in the daunting shadow of Mehrangarh, thinking of the vision of those Rajput kings who equipped arid cities like Jodhpur with sophisticated underground water recharge systems. Without any river or rainfall, civilization flourished, not in a reduced state, but in its most colorful and potent form. As I gather more from the locals, people's sacred codependence with water was brutally severed by Middle Eastern and European colonization.
In northern Karnataka, in that case it happened actually in the medieval times under one ruler who neglected completely all these water structures, and the whole area became heavily desertified. The colonial rule is based on basically distrust. It's not going to devolve any responsibility to the local people. When the British came, they created those public works departments. Everything broke down with neglect, accumulation of silt, erosion and so on. And though some of the ponds were still maintained and even some large reservoirs were built, but this interconnection, all these networks, sometimes over hundreds of kilometers, broke down.
An apt example of such sabotage is the Kallanai, also known as the Grand Anicut, the world's most ancient functioning dam. Constructed in the 2nd century by Chola king Kaligalan, Kallanai's elegant design would allow sediments to flow into the Kaveri Delta normally, and during floods would send the excess water into the Kollidam river, protecting the Kaveri Delta. For 1500 years, the delta prospered until the British arrived. Incapable of understanding its design, British engineers leveled the Anicut, made upstream dams, and eventually destroyed the Kallanai's original function. State interference in water management can also be a positive thing, like the approaches listed in Kautilya's Arthashastra. But absolute colonial control over forests and rivers and banning local communities from accessing them in productive ways disengage the empathy and sensitivity of people towards them. My hypothesis will be tested in Jhabua, the tribal heartland of Madhya Pradesh, where crores of tribal families live to this day. Colonial rule disrupted their way of life centuries ago, condemning them to poverty and menial labor. Yet, the faith of the tribals did not move an inch. But can faith alone bring change? I make acquaintance with Maheshi, a social worker and leader who has spent decades working with this community.
जल और जंगल और जमीन तीन मिलके एक ही विषय, जो काटने पे प्रतिबंध लगा, ये अभयारण्य बने, ये जंगल से संवेदना, जंगल के प्रति श्रद्धा हटा रहे हैं। जंगल लोग लगाते भी थे और काटते भी थे, पानी लेते भी थे और पानी रोकते भी थे। हमने कर दिया जंगल काटेंगे नहीं, पानी लेंगे नहीं, तो समाज से दूर हो गए, तो फिर समाज कट गया।
थोड़ा सा प्रकाश डालेंगे जो हलमा जो ये परंपरा है जो करते हैं, खास तौर से वाटर कंजर्वेशन और वाटर प्रिजर्वेशन की दिशा में।
वस्तुतः हलमा परंपरा है कि गांव के अंदर कोई व्यक्ति एक परेशानी में आ गया, आग लग गई, खेत में लग गई, कहीं लग गई, फिर उसको हमारे साथ कदम से कदम मिलाना है। इस तरह की सामाजिकता का ये संस्कार ये प्रक्रिया में था। तो इस प्रक्रिया में जब हम यहाँ आए तो बहुत लोग बारिश आधारित खेती करने के कारण गुजरात, राजस्थान, महाराष्ट्र, मध्य प्रदेश के बड़े शहरों में मजदूरी जाते थे। हमने ये कहा कि यदि बारिश की पूर्ति से 2 फसल हो जाए तो बोले तो फिर हमें जाने की जरूरत नहीं। हमने कहा पानी रोको, नदियां बहने लगे, जंगल हरे भरे हो जाएं, तालाब बन जाएं। उन्होंने कहा नहीं, इस काम के लिए हलमा बुला सकते हैं अपन। हलमा यानी कॉल है, एक आह्वान है, अर्थात तुम सबको बुलाओ। भील झाबुआ के कर्म से गुरु है। उन्होंने कहा फिर ज्यादा विचार नहीं करना, अपन हलमा बुलाते हैं। और कौन बुलाएगा? तो शिव जी का हलमा बुलाते हैं। और किसी ने प्रश्न खड़ा नहीं किया, क्या नहीं हम नहीं जाते। आए और परिवार के साथ आए, बच्चों के साथ आए, माताएं बहनें आई और गैती, फावड़ा, तगाड़ी लेकर आई और घंटों में उन्होंने वो काम कर दिया।
How strange. Problems that large bureaucratic bodies were unable to solve for centuries were solved by motivated locals within a few hours. Perhaps the whole colonial disenfranchising of the common man is what has pushed Bharat into its water crisis. I didn't have to search long for another example of what an empowered people could do. In the foothills of Dehradun, Professor Anil Joshi has succeeded in recharging an aquifer spread under 44 hectares of land, resulting in the revival of a major mountain river which feeds water to more than 18 villages downstream.
So we were suffering it, and we thought that if we again replant the trees on the watershed, that will take 10-12 years almost. Why not replace the same role with the water holes that we can create? And we had several water holes across the catchment. God bless, any rain that came, it began to go fill these water holes, trenches and gully plugging began to stop the water which used to run away. Miracle happened. Within a year only, we begin to see the water recharge in the stream. Once you make the whole catchment amenable, moisture helps the smaller plants to appear. And the same smaller plants and the soil invited the natural species to grow. And that became natural regrowth of the forest too. We earlier have 15 species of birds. Now it is 115 species. Today we have porcupine, wild boar and the whole food chain. What is the change that had occurred in a span of 10 years? One understanding is very clear. The water came first and the forest later. The water is the central commodity. Hundreds, thousands of locations this is being replicated, and everywhere the reports had come, the water is coming back. It's a return of water by understanding the nature.
If all it took was 20,000 people to solve Jabua's water crisis in one day, imagine what 7 billion people with their 14 billion hands can do for Mother Earth. One day of such selfless service is enough to solve Earth's mightiest challenges, even global warming. Perhaps the modern industrial society with a hammer in its hands is mistaking every problem as a nail. Earth will heal when we, like our ancestors, will mature into a society where nature is not our backdrop, but our very self, expressed daily in art, rituals, stories, songs, and action. Not a painting in a museum, but the very breath of life itself. This inseparable divinity in all creation is a unique perspective of Bharatiya Darshan. This drishti enabled our ancestors to sustain themselves for millennia and turn deserts into thriving cosmopolises. Learning from our ancestors and with the blessings of Providence, why can't we do the same?